Hi, and welcome to Lights On, a NeuroMom podcast. We are excited to be here today. I'm Amanda Reeve, and I'm here with my co-host and co-founder, Erin Palmer. Today, we have Mackenzie and Eric Cloy. We are in our season 2 talking about relationships. Today, we are going to have a special focus on those special relationships, those romantic relationships, those situations that happen to our TBI survivors after the TBI. We're so thankful that Mackenzie and Eric are willing to be here with us today. So before we get started, Erin, how about if you lead us in a little breather?
All right. This is a great topic because it's exciting, but it's also got a lot of nerves about it. Let's take a quick second. We'll do a deep breathe together. Here we go. I'm Erin. I am also the co-founder, and I'm super excited that we're having this conversation today. My son is 3.5 years post-injury, and Mackenzie is coming on 10 years in just a couple of months. We're in different places, so we're starting with their beautiful relationship. Mackenzie, will you introduce yourself and then introduce your amazing husband for us?
Yeah, my name is Mackenzie, and I'm so excited to be back. This is my husband, Eric.
When did you meet?
Freshman year of college, second semester. Fun times.
You were in a pastry class?
History class.
Oh.
Something like that. No, history, my fault.
Pastry class. I was like, do you still make pastries? When I come to visit, will you make us pastries? All right, that makes better sense. I thought you went to a really cool school. All right, so you met her, and we're just going to dive in. The whole conversation of this second season is about relationships. And we talked about in the intro, the first episode that Amanda and I did, talked about how both of us were really worried that the lives that our children had wanted, which included having romantic partners, that was important to Mackenzie as well as my son Dallas. We were concerned about how surviving the TBI was going to impact that. Would that still be available? How would it be different? What accommodations would somebody have to make for our children? And what accommodations would our children have to make to be successfully partnered with somebody else? In the heat of it, right when the injury or the illness is acute, it's so overwhelming that it's hard to imagine having success. But here you guys are. So I would love to hear your guys' sort of origin story of how you met and how you got connected. And then Mackenzie, I'll ask you to tell us about how you started to explain to Eric what had happened and where you were at in your recovery.
So we met in college, second semester, our freshman year. We had a ton of gen ed classes together. So we ended up in 3 classes together, hung out once in the library, and then never stopped hanging out. He came home with me for Easter a couple months later, and we were dating. We got engaged the summer going into our senior year of college, and then got married the summer after we graduated. I told Eric about my car accident very early in our relationship and shared some pictures, but I didn't really talk about it a lot, especially in college, because so much of my identity back home was the car accident girl. When I came to college, I didn't want that to be a big part of my identity, and I wanted to be able to just be Mackenzie. So when I met Eric, it was very similar, and just like, I just want him to get to know me. I'll tell him about my accident. I shared some pictures very early on, but I kind of put it in a back pocket after that.
Anybody we're ever going to meet in friendships or romantic relationships, everybody's brain is different and quirky. Like, that's just the deal. When you met her, were you aware early on? Did you see any times that she was processing things differently than you would have expected and have to come to understand that that was still the artifacts of a brain injury?
Honestly, for me, I think I just saw the bubbly personality, laughing and always joking around. In terms of just trying to process things, I don't think it was a lot of telltale signs that things were being processed different until we actually really got to know each other and started having tougher conversations. And then you can see some little things that might not be as typical. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely think with Mackenzie's injury, and even as we move forward, it's surface level things. You don't always pick up on it. But when you dig a little deeper, you see more things that you recognize as something might be different here the laughter, the social conversation, you're not going to pick up more red flags. Like, is she processing something different? Are things not connecting? So definitely can see where those friendships would be able to hide it a little different.
A lot of what you're saying makes me think of this, and that I did so much masking right after my injury. I was 17 when I got in my car accident. And then when I came to college, I wanted to be able to start over. I wanted to be able to just be Mackenzie. I did a lot of masking in public and around my friends. I just wanted so badly to fit in. I would mask, almost cover up some of those things and overextend myself in different ways to make up for it. The last few years of my life and my own mental health journey, I've really started to peel back some of those masks in the ways that I've overcompensated over the years. And I would say that has given you a completely different perspective on my brain injury. As I have started to stop pretending or overcompensating in my own journey, I've learned about my brain injury, and I've learned like, oh, that's not something that I can control. I don't have to pretend this doesn't exist. There are accommodations that can be made, and I can learn different tools how to regulate my emotions and executive functioning skills and these things that I used to just pretend didn't exist, and I would just hide it when I'm in my room by myself, and I'll deal with it, but I don't want anyone else to know that I struggle with these things.
When I think about brain injuries, one of the things that is really challenging is that because people can't look at you and see them, there's not grace for them. My son's injury resulted in he still uses a brace on his foot, and he's paralyzed on his right arm, and he has aphasia. His expressive communication has some hiccups. It's obvious when you're talking to Dallas that there's something to be aware of because you can see those signs. I think there's a little bit of grace given there, maybe too much to the extent that people sometimes talk to him like he's stupid because they don't understand. That's its own frustration. But when you don't have any outward signs physically, nobody's looking at you thinking, oh, she looks like she must have survived something horrible. Do you think that caused you to feel like you had to mask more or had to rise up differently because people didn't have any space for you? Am I asking that in a way that makes sense to you, Mackenzie?
And I think that is what ended up happening. Once I came to college, why I've realized I have to start talking about it. Because if I don't talk about it, other people aren't picking up on these different things. Now I'm 25 years old and I'm completely burnt out because I overcompensate so much. It has really affected my mental health because of all of the overcompensating I have done for 8 years and all of the hiding that I have done and all of the pretending that I have done. And now I'm exhausted. I can't function. A lot of what you just said happened. And I had to start finding that balance of how much do I talk about it and tell safe people about my brain injury without it becoming my complete identity. And that's all people see. And then I am talked to differently. And then I am looked at differently. And I don't want that either. Really
you went
hard.
from this young lady who was the brain injury individual in the community, the car accident girl, and she wanted to get away from that so badly. She went away to college. She was trying to figure out who Mackenzie is, but you're doing that with a brain injury on your own, trying to sort out, as every other college student is, who they are and find their own identity. But you also are doing it with less support with the brain issue. So it makes it a lot more complex.
Even in college, I did set up accommodations. When it came to the school part, there were noticeable delays and symptoms of my brain injury, but I set up accommodations with the disability office and kept that pretty silent, pretty secretive for a while. I would take my tests out of the classroom. I remember feeling embarrassed at the time, other kids finding out why I'm taking my test out of the classroom or why I get extended time on different things or why I get things written down, PowerPoints printed out first just in class. I was trying to be young and cool and fit in with my friends, but also I was trying to figure out how to find how to utilize these accommodations that my brain needs without being embarrassed by it.
Eric,
And
we're
that
talking
was
about
like
relationships. If you
hard.
had met her and she was on crutches when you met her, right? She'd broken her ankle, she's on crutches. You would know when dealing with stairs that she would need an extra minute. You would have that visual cue of this activity or conversation is going to be impacted because of this issue she's recovering from. With the brain injury, did you have to ask her to say, I'm not processing, or did you have to say to her sometimes? I assume, Mackenzie, I should clarify, with Dallas, when he gets tired, his processing goes down. You get him in the height of a well-rested day, there's no brain injury impacts. But as he gets tired, or if something's super noisy and gets overwhelming, then you see some changes. Eric, I'm wondering how you could identify what was Mackenzie being a stinker, or Mackenzie, or that there was a processing issue that you needed to slow down with. How are you able to identify that? Or how are you still able to identify?
Well, I have to say, honestly, for the longest time, and still, that's something we're still working on now. It took a super long time to figure that out, just because me being the person I am, that's just who I was. Growing up, just communicating, I struggled to communicate and just talk about and process feelings myself. Like, I'm a analyzer very much. So, like, I sit down and I think about stuff and I overthink and I play scenarios in my head. When you come across somebody like that, I didn't pick up on the signs because I'm still trying to process stuff myself. So it's like trial by fire. We just kind of learned on the go. And early on, we would, I wouldn't say clash, but bump heads, and we just disconnect just because I'm trying to process this information while also not knowing much about her brain injury and the different stuff that was going on. So it's like we was on two different pages at a lot of times. And like you said, like now I'm starting to pick up more on it just because I done got a little farther in my journey and just trying to figure out how to communicate and express certain stuff. Just being part of her journey and seeing the growth that she's been making, we just figuring out little pieces. So like even now, I think the communication aspect of it is better. Like when it comes to like stopping and slowing stuff down to talk about the details, but it's still gonna be those moments where it's a disconnect just because I'm trying to figure it out myself and she's still figuring some stuff out for her.
I was glad to talk more this episode because your mama loves you so much, Mackie, that it's unbelievable. But I swear, Eric, she might love you the most.
No, literally. It's her favorite kid.
I'm not editing this out. I'm going to have to listen to us laughing and crying.
I love it. It's real. Something that you're really good at is picking up on when I'm sensory overloaded. When there's so much noise happening often when we're in public and I can't think straight. I think you're good at just jumping in those moments. You've learned my body language enough to know when I'm overwhelmed and frozen in those sensory overload situations. You just have naturally learned my body language.
I could attest to that. Yeah, a part of me being that super analytical person is like I'm always watching the details. Like, oh, you just breathe different. That was weird. Why did you look like that? What was that noise? Why are you tapping the table and stuff? So like I always been that type of person to look at those. So when it came to figuring out when there's something wrong, I kind of relied on that a lot. I still do, honestly. I guess you could say that was one of the early indicators while we were still trying to figure out the communication piece of it. It's just picking up on the little things.
I think because my husband is on the spectrum and he is so brilliant, I spent the last couple decades figuring out that's a brain difference. For example, when we were first together, I remember asking him to put the clothes from the wash into the dryer. He said, no problem. And I went to get the clothes out of the dryer an hour later and did the pants for work, and they were wet, and he had not turned the dryer on because I had asked him to put the clothes from the washer into the dryer. And so he did, by God. I had to learn, and he had to learn. Why would she want these wet clothes in the dryer? We just had to figure it out together. We leaned on a lot of humor. Before my son's brain injury, we would say at our house when something like that would happen, what in the Asperger's is going on here? We would joke about it because we had to learn each other's beautiful brains. And so I've come to recognize the way that he processes, it brings more depth. It brings a different insight. It's better for our relationship that we don't process the same way, but we had to learn each other. And so then when Dallas had a brain injury, I was already trained at recognizing that different brain processes can be better for a relationship in some ways, not in all. Some brain injuries are terrible, make everything worse. Have you been able to look at the way each other processes differently and see beauty in that?
I think that one of the things, like now looking back in our relationship and our life, there were a lot of things that when I met Eric, he just got and he just understood. What we've learned now is that both of us, like my brain injury has resulted in a lot of ADHD-like symptoms. I really struggle with the executive functioning, the emotional regulation. My injury was in my frontal lobe. Eric has more recently got diagnosed with ADHD. And I think that there was a point where our brains do work the same and we just got it. There were things I never had to explain to Eric that now I understand why I never had to explain that to you. We have struggled with some of the same executive functioning. So we were able to support each other. I think we just got each other. When I look back at our relationship, I'm like, that's why we were kind of wired the same, both being neurodivergent. Before there was a word for that, we just clicked. I felt super safe with Eric. I've discovered more recently in my own mental health journey and in his mental health journey, as we've started to learn more about our brains, I've realized that both of us being neurodivergent has helped us understand each other by living life together. We were very naturally able to click because we're both neurodivergent.
So to me, in dealing with this journey with her, it's opened my eyes to a lot of stuff and what I was dealing with myself. Like you said, like that whole ADHD diagnosis, that came in recent months. Like this is super recent. I've been dealing my whole life with little stuff that I didn't really even know about. And just, I think the way I was raised up and just in our community, I don't want to say we didn't take mental health serious, but you don't pay much mind to it, you know, for various reasons. That's something I never really got into and didn't really understand much about. As I've walked along this journey with her and picked up on different things while I'm watching her go through her therapies and counseling, it opened my eyes to try some of this stuff and pay attention to some of the little details and what she was bringing home from her sessions, and then try to apply it to myself and realize, okay, I do some of these things, and maybe I do think like that. Because of that, I've seen a lot of growth. I grew up a lot in terms of my mental and just my, I guess, emotional health too. Therapy was something that came out of that. I didn't believe in going to therapy, but like, it's just not something that I did. You know, I wasn't really cool with confiding in somebody that I don't know. So just doing little things like that open up the doors to a lot of self-revelation, maybe. A lot of growth that comes from just being in this journey.
He is a big Black man, and he's so accurate. In the Black community, there's so much stigma. You grew up in Southern Alabama, so there's a racial element. There's stigma in the Black community, but then also the South. Like there's just so many, all these different dynamics, I think, at play.
You're the man in charge. Yeah. You've got it all together. My son was military, and getting people, especially men who are in those incredibly hypermasculine areas of athletics and military leadership, to go to therapy has been an important change socially that we're still making. I love that you're saying to people, yes, I'm this big, athletic, strong Black man from the South. I found a lot of value in therapy for yourself and for your relationship.
Yeah. And like a lot of what you guys are doing is trying to pave the way because it wasn't paved for us through the lens of being caregivers for individuals with a brain injury. I feel like so much of our relationship, but so much of our individual lives have been that. Trying to do better, trying to be better, trying to pave the way, even though there's not somebody to follow this path. That's what I see. That's what I've seen in you. And I appreciate that you've been along for this journey because it's not stuff that's always been talked about. There are so many stigmas with mental health and lack of education when it comes to brain injuries. It just all kind of goes together.
Amanda, you doing okay?
Yeah.
I am. I think one of the things that Mackenzie has said often is that Eric didn't sign up for this. I've had to say he did, because he fell in love with you just the way you are. You two have had to grow up together because of the time when you had your brain injury. It has not been always an easy journey, but it's been a beautiful journey. And oh, sorry, I get emotional. But to sit here and listen to my wonderful son-in-law share from his heart is a blessing and a gift. The brain injury journey is not easy. We have not had an easy paved way because Mackenzie has been told multiple times that if you had a more severe injury, we could offer resources, or everything looks fine. We have had to navigate difficult situations. You and Eric have done it together through learning how to communicate through trial and error. And I think it is a beautiful example for other people as you're navigating this. It blesses my mama heart.
You're so sweet, Amanda. You're so sweet. I just love this project. It's amazing.